My fiancée and her family told me, "You'll never be good enough. The wedding is off." I just nodded. Then I called my father and canceled the $1 million contract his company had just awarded her dad's company to save their failing business. The next morning, they were frantically calling me. I, 20 male, am a project manager for a mid-sized tech firm. It's a good job, I make good money, I'm respected in my field, and I've always considered myself a pretty straightforward what you see is what you get kind of guy. For the last 4 years, the best part of my life was Hannah, 28. She was vibrant, funny, the kind of person who could make a trip to the grocery store feel like an adventure. I loved her. I really, truly did. Her family, however, was a different story. Her father, Lawrence, 58, runs a custom architectural materials company. Her mother, Jacqueline, 56, is a woman whose primary occupation seems to be judging everyone else's occupations. They were always polite to me, but with an edge. The kind of politeness that feels like they're constantly converting my salary into their currency of social standing and finding it lacking. About 8 months ago, I learned through Hannah that Lawrence's business was on the brink of collapse. Bad investments and a failure to adapt had left him dangling over a financial cliff. Hannah was distraught. I love her, and I wanted to help. My father runs a very successful, very large property development corporation. I knew they had a massive new flagship project starting. I sat down with my dad. I made a business case. Lawrence's company, despite its recent failures, did high-quality niche work. I suggested my dad's firm could subcontract the lobby and executive suite finishing to Lawrence. It would be a lifeline. My dad is a sharp businessman. He doesn't do favors that will sink his own ships. He had his team do their due diligence. The report was grim. Lawrence's company was a significant risk. But my dad, trusting my judgment and wanting to support me, agreed. He structured a contract with extremely strict quality control gates and a termination for convenience clause. It's a standard clause in his business. It allows the client to cancel the contract at any time for any reason, provided they pay a predetermined penalty fee. He looked at me and said, "This gives us an out if he can't deliver, or for any other reason. Don't forget that, Arthur." The contract was for just over $1 million. The penalty for termination was $75,000. When I told Hannah, she cried with relief. Lawrence shook my hand so hard I thought he might break it. That was 6 months ago. The contract saved them. Lawrence hired back his staff, the initial deposits and first 2 progress payments were made, and for the first time in our relationship, her family's praise felt genuine. Lawrence started calling me son. Jacqueline stopped asking passive-aggressive questions about my career. Their financial security had seemingly bought their affection. The change was gradual. As Lawrence's confidence returned, so did his arrogance. He started making comments about getting back on top where he belongs. Jacqueline began planning a wedding that was far more extravagant than what Hannah and I had discussed. The breaking point came last night. It wasn't a formal ambush, it was worse. It was a casual, spontaneous execution. We were at their house, having a glass of wine. I brought up the wedding budget, mentioning that Jacqueline's latest plans were about double what Hannah and I could realistically afford. Jacqueline let out a small, condescending laugh. "Oh, Arthur, don't be so provincial. One must project success. It's an investment in our family's image." "With all due respect, Jacqueline, it's our wedding and our finances," I said as gently as I could. Lawrence, who a few months ago was practically begging me for help, puffed out his chest. "Arthur, there's a certain way of doing this. You're a good manager, but you don't quite have the vision for what this family is becoming again." The air went still. "Vision?" I asked, looking at Hannah. She was silent, swirling her wine, refusing to meet my eyes. That was my answer. "You're a nice boy, Arthur," Jacqueline said, twisting the knife. "But you're a stepping stone, not a destination. Hannah needs a partner who reflects her station. It's time we were honest about that." Then, Hannah finally spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "They're right, Arthur. I'm sorry. This isn't working. I think we should call off the wedding." The shock didn't hit me like a lightning bolt. It was a slow, creeping cold. They had used me. They had used my love for their daughter, my family's resources, to get back on their feet. And now that they felt stable, I was disposable. An employee whose services were no longer required. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I just looked at the three of them, their faces smug with a sense of restored superiority. I stood up. I understand, I said. I walked out, got into my car, and just sat in their driveway for a full 10 minutes, my hands shaking. The whole drive home was a blur. This wasn't a calculated move on my part, it was a raw, visceral reaction. The pain was immense, but underneath it, a cold, hard anger was beginning to form. I spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, replaying every condescending word. The next morning, I called my father. My voice was hoarse. "Dad," I started. "It's over with Hannah." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry, son. Truly. What happened?" "They decided I wasn't good enough for them now that they're not on the verge of bankruptcy." The words tasted like ash. There was another pause. "I see," he said, his voice turning to steel. "That termination for convenience clause, are you thinking about it?" "I am," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "I know it will cost the company. There's a penalty, and you'll have to find a new vendor on short notice. It's a huge ask." "Arthur," he interrupted, "my company will be fine. It's a headache, yes, it will cost us some money, but family comes first, always. Are you absolutely 100% sure this is what you want to do?" I thought about their faces, their smugness, their utter lack of gratitude, the calculated cruelty of it. "Yes," I said. "I am." "All right," he said. "I'll have legal draft the notice of termination this morning. They'll cite the clause. It will be delivered to Lawrence's office by midday." It's now 1 p.m. The notice was delivered an hour ago. My phone has been silent until now, but it just lit up with a call from Lawrence. Then Hannah. Then Jacqueline. They're starting to realize what just happened. Update 1. Hey everyone. The comments on my original post were overwhelming. Thank you. It's strange how knowing you're not crazy, that your anger is justified, can be so grounding. A lot of you asked for an update. Things have escalated, just not in the way I expected. The calls started moments after my last post. The first voicemails weren't angry, they were confused. "Lawrence, Arthur? I just received a legal notice from your father's company. There must be some mistake. They're terminating the contract. This has to be a clerical error. Call me." "Arthur, what is going on? My dad is freaking out. He said you canceled the contract? This is some kind of sick joke, right? Call me." I let them go to voicemail for hours. I needed the space. My initial cold anger had given way to a deep, gut-wrenching hurt. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think straight. This wasn't a clean revenge. It felt like a messy, painful amputation. By evening, the tone of the messages had shifted dramatically. Panic had set in. "Lawrence, Arthur, you have to call your dad and tell him to reverse this. The penalty fee doesn't cover my material costs for the next phase. I took out a loan, Arthur, based on the full value of the contract. I have payroll. You're destroying me." There it was. He hadn't just gotten back on his feet, he had immediately over-leveraged himself, assuming the full $1 million was already his. The $75,000 kill fee would be a drop in the bucket compared to the debt he'd just taken on. I finally answered a call from Hannah late that night. I knew I had to face it. "How could you do this?" she sobbed into the phone. Actual sobs. "Hannah, you ended our engagement. You and your parents made it clear I wasn't wanted." That was a fight, a stupid argument. You don't ruin people's lives over a fight. My dad is going to go bankrupt. For real this time. The bank is going to call in his loan. "This wasn't just a fight," I said, my voice hardening. "This was a calculated statement of my worth to your family, and the contract was a gesture of goodwill based on me becoming part of your family. The wedding is off, so the goodwill is gone. It's that simple." "It's not simple. You can fix this. Just one call, Arthur. Tell your dad you were emotional, that you made a mistake. I'll do anything. I'll apologize. We can get back together." The offer was so hollow, so transparently transactional, it snapped me out of my grief and back into cold clarity. "No," I said. "We can't. This is over." Then she got nasty. "You'll regret this. You're a vindictive monster." She hung up. The next day, Jacqueline tried a different tactic. She showed up at my apartment building. I was leaving to get groceries, and she was waiting by the door. "Arthur," she said, trying to look sympathetic. "We are all so sorry. We were wrong. The stress, it made us say things we didn't mean." "You meant every word," I replied, not breaking my stride. "Think of Hannah," she pleaded, following me. "She's a mess. She loves you. And think of all those workers, their families. You're putting them all out on the street right before the holidays because your feelings got hurt. The attempt to guilt trip me was so blatant it was almost insulting. Their jobs are in jeopardy because Lawrence runs his business recklessly, and because you as a family treat people as disposable. This is not on me, Jacqueline. I got to my car. Before I could close the door, she said, "She's keeping the ring, you know. It's the least she deserves for the pain and suffering you've caused her." I just stared at her. The sheer audacity. I didn't say anything. I just closed the door and drove away. The ring wasn't a huge diamond. It was a vintage sapphire piece I'd picked out because it matched her eyes. It was appraised at $9,500. Not a fortune, but not insignificant. And the principle of it, that was what stuck with me. They break my heart and they want to keep a parting gift for their trouble. The silence from them now is different. It's not the silence of waiting. It's the silence of plotting. Update 2. Hey, it's me, Arthur. It's been a few weeks. The quiet I mentioned didn't last. As many of you predicted, when direct attacks failed, they went for the scorched earth option. The smear campaign began. Jacqueline, a master of back-channel gossip, started telling a twisted version of our story to anyone who would listen. In her telling, I was a possessive and unstable partner. The contract was a tool I used to control Hannah. When she and her family found the courage to stand up to me, I flew into a rage and pulled the contract to destroy them out of spite. It was insidious and designed to make me look like a monster. A few distant acquaintances bought it. I got some judgmental texts, but my real friends, my family, they all knew the truth. My dad's company handled it professionally, simply stating to industry inquiries that the contract was terminated for convenience per the agreement's clauses, and that a new vendor had been secured. The professional neutrality of it all made Jacqueline's dramatic narrative look even more unhinged. The consequences for Lawrence were real. The termination wasn't a secret for long. Word got out that his lifeline was cut. That, combined with his already shaky reputation, was a death sentence. The bank did in fact call in the massive loan he'd taken out. His suppliers started demanding cash up front. He couldn't make payroll. The layoffs began. I do feel for the employees. That's the one part of this that leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. The collateral damage. But their fate was sealed by Lawrence's pride and recklessness, not my phone call. Hannah, meanwhile, took to social media with vague, melodramatic posts about surviving a toxic relationship and learning her worth. It was also performative. Through all this, the issue of the ring gnawed at me. Jacqueline's words, "the least she deserves," echoed in my head. It was the symbol of their entitlement. So I decided to stop being passive. I consulted a lawyer. A regular guy, not one of my dad's corporate sharks. He sent a formal letter to Hannah requesting the return of the $9,500 engagement ring. As expected, they ignored it. So we filed a case in small claims court. The value was well within the jurisdictional limit. The filing fee was a few $100s. It was never about the money. It was about forcing them into a forum where lies and social maneuvering don't work, where only facts matter. It was about demanding they face a direct consequence they couldn't talk their way out of. The process has been slow. We have a court date set for next month. In the meantime, the for sale sign went up on their lawn. Not because of my actions directly, but because the house was the only major asset they had left to satisfy the bank. Seeing that sign was a strange feeling. It wasn't triumph. It was just a sad, inevitable conclusion to their story of greed. I got an email from Hannah last night from a new account. It was a long, rambling message about how I was soulless, how I was dragging her through the mud over a stupid ring while her family was losing their home. "You have no idea the pain you've caused," she wrote. This time, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a quiet finality. I saved the email and forwarded it to my lawyer with a note. More evidence of her acknowledging she has the ring and refuses to return it. This isn't a clean victory. It's a messy, protracted, and emotionally exhausting process. But it's a process of taking back control. They wanted to write the narrative where I was the villain and they were the victims. I'm just making sure the final chapter is based on the truth. Final update. Hey everyone. It's Arthur. This will be my final update. The last few months have been a slow grind, but I think the accounts are finally settled. The small claims court date was surreal. It was a sterile room with fluorescent lights, a world away from Jacqueline's lavish living room. I came with my lawyer. Hannah came with her parents. They all looked diminished. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a brittle, defensive anger. Hannah represented herself, and her defense was exactly what you'd expect. A tearful, rambling story about our passionate love, my inexplicable betrayal, and her profound emotional distress. She argued the ring was a gift, a small token to remember our good times. When it was our turn, my lawyer didn't engage with the drama. He simply presented the facts in a calm, methodical way. The date the engagement began. The appraisal value of the ring at $9,500. The date that Hannah and her family unequivocally terminated the engagement. Printouts of my polite, formal requests for the ring's return. A copy of her email in which she stated her intention to keep the ring as compensation. The judge listened, his face impassive. He then looked at Hannah. "Miss," he said, his voice devoid of emotion, "an engagement ring is a gift given in contemplation of marriage. You terminated the engagement. It doesn't matter who was right or wrong in the arguments. The condition for the gift was not met. You will return the ring to him or pay him the appraised value of $9,500. You have 10 business days." Hannah stood there, stunned into silence. Jacqueline's face was a mask of fury and humiliation. In their world, they could always talk their way out of things. Here, in the impartial light of the law, their narrative collapsed. The ring arrived at my lawyer's office a week later by mail, in a cheap padded envelope. No note. The rest of their story unfolded predictably. Lawrence's company was officially dissolved. The house was sold for less than it was worth. From a mutual acquaintance, I heard they moved into a rental townhouse complex. The social climbing had ended in a sheer drop. I never heard from them again. Their numbers are still blocked. Their chapter is over. As for me, this hasn't been a victory lap. It has been a slow, painful education. The betrayal left a mark. I started seeing a therapist to unpack not just the breakup, but my own willingness to overlook the red flags for so long because I wanted the relationship to work. It hurt. It still does sometimes. I'm not dating. I'm focusing on myself. I'm hiking on the weekends with friends. I'm leading a new, challenging project at work. I'm rebuilding. My dad and I are closer than ever. He respects that I handled my own fight, and I'm deeply grateful that he was willing to take a financial hit and a logistical nightmare to back me up without a second thought. There's no triumphant feeling. I don't feel happy that they lost their house or their company. I just feel a quiet sense of justice. They didn't face some grand revenge I orchestrated. They simply faced the natural, unavoidable consequences of their own choices. Their foundation was built on arrogance and debt. And when I removed the single pillar of support I was providing, the whole rotten structure came down on its own. I just stepped out of the way.